Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee meeting for April 22nd, 2025. Because this is the first meeting of the RIPA committee this year, we need to proceed first with the election of a chair and a vice chair. So first, I would like to call for any nominations for chair. Are there any other nominations? Do you accept your nomination? All right, I need a mover, or sorry, we have a mover. I need a seconder for to resolve that Warden Jones be elected as chair of the RIPA committee for 2025. Right.
That would be second nomination for chair.
All in favor? That is carried. And now I will turn it over to Warden Jones for the nominations for vice chair.
Thank you, Catherine. My apologies for just plopping myself down in the front chair. I wasn't even thinking about it until I did it. But so motion or need a nomination for the vice chair's seat. Seconder Mark.
I'm going to nominate Mark Whitner because he needs something to do.
You can. You can. You
can second that.
well,
Resolved that Ed Ketchaba be elected as vice chair of the RIPA committee for 2025.
all in favor? Motion carries. Nope. One opposed, carried still. Okay, moving down to item 3, approval of the agenda. Anything to add? Fairly straightforward.
Resolved that the agenda for the April 22nd, 2025 Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented.
Mover and seconder, please. Ketchaba and Lund. All in favor? Motion carries. Adoption of the minutes from April 30th, 2024.
Resolved that the minutes of the April 30th, 2024 Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee meeting be adopted.
Mover and seconder, please. Latham and Whitner. All in favor? Motion carries. And any disclosure of pecuniary interest or not seeing any? No delegations, so right down to 7-1. Director of Engineering Services, Corporate Communications and Engagement Coordinator, request to improve signage for agricultural equipment. Floor is yours, Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To you, to the rest of the committee, this report is in response to Council's direction to develop a response to the correspondence received from the EFA back in December 3rd. That request specifically was that all bridges, hazardous hills, and curves be marked with no passing signs and have solid line markers installed. This request is, let me first speak about our history in understanding the challenges that agricultural equipment and owners and farmers have moving on county roads. So we continue to support the agricultural community. We're fortunate that our predecessors have built predominantly wide county roads. Not all our county roads are sufficiently wide enough, but many are. And they're constructed with other road users in mind, and the wide shoulders are testament to that. Turning movements at intersections, and most recently at Elgin's first roundabout, was specifically designed to accommodate a combine or large agricultural equipment. Staff also considers the importance of the harvest season when looking at construction schedules. When possible, we do, the agricultural community may not appreciate this because we still do close roads for construction activities, but we are mindful of the undue hardship that poses on farmers to navigate around construction zones. So we modify those schedules where we can, where it makes sense to do so. We believe that the request from the EFA is already partially fulfilled with proper pavement markings. We adhere to the Ontario Traffic Manual, and any roadway that's narrow, a crest, a curve, Book 11, the Ontario Traffic Manual Book 11 speaks specifically in regards to pavement markings. And we follow that manual and the guidance in that manual, and it's staff's understanding that those locations that I've mentioned do already have no passing restrictions on the center line markings. Most of those locations will also have white fog edge lines also installed, again, following the guidelines of Book 11. The do not pass sign that was requested by the EFA is guided under Book 5. Book 5 are regulatory signs. So this is specifically an RB 31 sign. It's a sign that shows two vehicles with a slash through them. Sometimes that can be supplemented with a tab that says do not pass. And these are for use in exceptional circumstances. In most cases, the pavement markings are sufficient to inform the motorists that this may be an unsafe location to pass. You may have restricted sight lines. But in exceptional circumstances, this sign can be used. At each one of the locations when the sign is used, a permissive passing sign must also be implemented after the restrictive no passing zone. So if you're telling people you can't do something, when that zone ends, then you tell them passing is now permitted. Some of the examples in the manual provide construction zones or where there's collision statistics that have been established that show that there is an issue with the pavement markings not being obeyed. With this design criteria in mind and recognizing that there are literally hundreds of bridges and curves and hills, approximately 500 signs would have to be installed on the county road system. And this blanket approach is not supported by staff. It would aid in sign pollution, and staff does not believe it will result in the expected outcomes that the signage would provide. Staff is, however, very supportive of implementing signage at strategic locations where agricultural equipment frequents during the planting and harvesting season. We would work with the EFA, with this committee, to determine what those locations are. I'm not sure if they're grain elevators, if it's seed depots, but staff envisions maybe there's a dozen or so of these locations on county roads. And then at those locations, we're suggesting we have a modified warning sign. So typically if a commercial operation yields at least 50 trucks a day entering, you will put a truck entrance sign up. So staff envisions a custom truck entrance sign, but showing a tractor entering the road instead of a truck, possibly as one suggestion. And then there could be a sign tab installed under there with warning farm equipment or some other text that we think would relay that message to the traveling public. To complement this signage campaign, a public communications campaign can also be developed in-house with the assistance of the EFA and the Elgin OPP, because they're the ones who patrol our roadways. And during the harvest and the planting seasons, they control the roadways with slow-moving vehicle safety in mind. Elgin Communications staff, Jess is here with us today, can also develop a message that can be released annually during spring and harvest planting seasons. Once the messaging is created, it would be of little effort to make sure this is broadcasted not only on the county's website, but municipal websites and social media as well. During, again, those times of the years. And the OPP do a fantastic job of this. They recognize every season brings a certain type of behavior to drivers. They're not prepared for the winter driving season, and then they want to get, their nice vehicles out during the springtime, and they maybe want to drive aggressively. So they already have established communication campaigns year round to address these type of behaviors. So I think they would be strategic partners in ensuring that proper communications were released, to support the agricultural community. So as far as financial implications, if we are only speaking of a dozen locations or so on county roads, the cost of implementing that type of signage could be absorbed within the existing county signage budget. And the cost of developing a public messaging campaign could also be done in-house at relative, no additional cost. When I say in-house or within existing budget, things are still costing money, but we're suggesting new additional funds would not have to be sought from county council in order to implement these initiatives. So those are some preliminary ideas that we have, and we'd be happy to have a more fulsome open discussion with this committee.
Thanks, Peter. Jessica, do you want to do your presentation first? Go ahead.
So good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and through you to members of the committee. And continuing on with this conversation from a communications perspective, I'd just like to say I do come from generations of farmers and someone who actually was in a farming accident. My grandfather was and was paralyzed from his armpits down. So I understand the importance of this initiative, and it is very near and dear to my heart. So before we dive into this, I do want to just say again that we can do a lot of this in-house, and this is just providing you with a high-level overview of some examples of what we could do. Next slide. So upon doing the research on this topic, I came across the Harvest Season Road Safety Week Act. This was passed back in 2023 by the Honorable Rob Flack. And this act is all about bringing to light farm safety. And it proclaims the third Monday in September as this week. So next slide, Jenna. So kind of diving deep into what this campaign could look like. Again, this is a very high level approach. So it's to encourage residents and visitors to embrace Elgin County's rural lifestyle by driving with care, patience, and understanding during harvest season. A theme that we came up with was rooted in agriculture, slow down, we're growing. So really taking that lifestyle piece and building upon it, why we're such an attractive place to live, work, and play. So the messaging would focus on farming is our foundation. It's more than a job. It's a community way of life. Slow moving equipment is a sign of hardworking season, not an inconvenience. A safe road is a shared road. One thing that I did forget to put on this slide is the audience. So the audience that we will be looking at targeting is people who live here, but also visitors. And I'll dive deeper into that in a couple slides. Next slide, Jenna. So how we thought that we could launch this campaign is using that third Monday in September and giving staff enough time to reframe this messaging and do a really good job at getting the messaging clear and out through different partners and working with people like the EFA and the OPP, as Peter mentioned. So that puts us at Monday, September the 15th is when we would like council to possibly proclaim this week by doing a flag raising and a kickoff ceremony. And again, it's a chance to spotlight agriculture's role in Elgin County, not just as a key economic driver, but as a way of life that shapes our landscape, our communities, and our local identity. Next slide. So this is a high level look at what some of the content could be a part of this campaign. So I think by taking an approach where it's organic and documentary and we're telling a story, that seems to really resonate with people. We're not going to be able to change everyone's driving behaviors, but I think that if we take the appropriate messaging, we have an opportunity to maybe be in the minds of people and make them think twice before they make that unsafe passage. So something that we thought is doing some behind the scenes of local farms during harvest and using real photos, video clips, and possibly short interviews with people who are members of the EFA and council to help tell this story. So the more people that we can have a part of this campaign telling their story, I think it would really resonate with people. Another opportunity that we thought was using photos from our archives. We have a lot of very beautiful photographs that seem to catch a lot of people's attention. So what we thought is we could use these historical photos in black and white and put that that colorful triangle on there and just say, things may have changed, but road safety has not. It's always been an important piece of this messaging. So some tools that we would use would be Facebook and Instagram, our county website. And when I talked about trying to get the minds of visitors, this is where we could tap into economic development and tourism and partner with them. So by using their tourism website that they've just relaunched, we can take an approach where we welcome people to our community and invite them to slow down and take in the scenery and the way of life. We would also do a media advisory and a press release for the proclamation to capture the media's attention that this is something that is a priority. And as someone who's been in farm equipment, I think there's a message there too that some people don't necessarily understand just how big this equipment is. So getting this firsthand perspective of filming within farm equipment and showing the public just how big this equipment is and why they can only drive so fast, I think that's a really important message that some people might not understand, especially visitors to our area who are not familiar with driving and navigating around farm equipment. Next slide. So again, just touching on some partnerships and some people that we could work with to really make an effective campaign and make sure we're sharing this message in as many methods as possible. So leveraging partnerships would be individuals like our local chambers and BIAs getting this out, the Elgin Federation of Agriculture, our local municipal partners, the St. Thomas and Elgin Home Builders Association, since they're kind of the first hand at welcoming new people that are moving here. The Elgin OPP, as Peter mentioned, they do a lot of campaigns already, so let's tap into that. And then others that may come up through this committee or as we're working on this campaign. Next slide. This is something that Peter had mentioned, that this would be, when we make these messages, they could be repurposed year after year. Now, this is something that we've obviously missed for this year because these have already been printed, but it's something that I think could have a very positive impact for 2026. And I've spoken with the Economic Development and Tourism Department, and they think that this is something that we could do as well, adding some editorial that aligns with the branding of the Taste Guide and the Elgin County Tourism Guide. That talks about sharing the road and again, welcoming our visitors to our rural lifestyle where slowing down is a part of the charm. So it's a great opportunity to keep this messaging alive year after year. Next slide. That is the end of the high level of what we could do, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jessica. Ed, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jess, I certainly appreciate the idea and notion of a media relations campaign. I'm thinking you need to broaden the time horizon out a little bit. Harvest, from one definition, you might be thinking of big grain buggies and things running up and down the road. But I got cucumber wagons running up and down my roads in July. We'll have asparagus coming off in May. You know what I'm trying to get at. The season is more than just the fall. Realizing you need a time frame to get this up and going, so a launch in the fall is ideal. It's a good idea, but broaden it out, because you're going to have more 40-foot cultivators running up and down the road in the springtime than you are 20-foot combine heads going down the road in the fall. You cut me off. I think that working with the Federation, the OPP, to identify the, Peter, to identify the hotspots across the county, probably a good idea. I'm not convinced that it's the local venues, the Kings Mills Grains or Hensel Co-op that's giving you the problems. I think it's people who are very impatient and ambitious, or whatever you want to call it, cruising down the straightaways or even on the damn curves, and they're going to go around you no matter what. So I don't know how you're going to attract that attention other than putting a cultivator or two through their windshield, colloquially put. But I mean, I really don't know how they'll pass me like I'm standing still. But the point being, so I don't know if putting signage like turning lanes or something out in front of these venues is going to do it. I'm wondering if you might want to think of a more broader campaign, like some larger signs, welcome to Elgin County, respect the triangle. You know what I'm trying to get at? share the road. There are some large equipment. Slow down, if you will, like respect our lifestyle, but this is part of what we do. So rather than having a whole bunch of no passing signs or turning signs, just some kind of a broader general awareness sign, whether it's along, can't be along number 3. Unfortunately, you don't own it except to the west. Whether it's on 45 or something like that along county roads where there's some busy traffic. Lakeshore Line's another one where there's some busy agricultural traffic, maybe up 19. You know what I'm trying to get at as an alternative to think about. Just a couple of high level thoughts from me.
I guess from my perspective and a few of my hair raising events, it does seem to be the straightaways that are the biggest challenge. And if you're going into DG Grains, it was Cargill with 2 wagons of soybeans on the back of your tractor, and cars are trying to pass you on, and they have no idea what's out there until they're out there, and then it can be a little bit dicey. So I would have to agree with Ed that I think sometimes some of the straightaways on, well, Fingal, from my own perspective, or Talbot Line or 45, I'm sure there's lots of other roads across the county that are similar, but I would have to say that I haven't had a lot of challenges on a bend or a hill. It's always a straightaway. Richard?
Yeah, through the chair. I find a lot of the people that are causing a lot of the problems just don't understand farming. And they don't even realize what length they've got to pass. They don't look to see if there's a field gate that it may be turning in, or a farm yard or whatever. A lot of these equipment has got a lot of lights flashing. And sometimes there's perhaps one that isn't. So, or they're looking at it, they don't know whether they're signaling a left or a right. So, I mean, that all comes with farming, as we all pretty well are. You look for things to say, I'm not, just in case they're going in that way, or if they're turning left, correct? And so, unless you can help yourself, it's you know, and that, or they understand, it's pretty difficult. And they don't even, just coming here this morning, you see the cars that go in on double lines all the time. They take absolutely no notice at all. And if it's a slow moving vehicle, they're going to do it. And that's what it's educating the people that don't understand.
Yeah, Greg, and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you earlier. Greg Fendy is the president of Elgin Federation of Agriculture, and we're very happy that you're here. And hopefully it's a different way of the committee is looking at things and working closer to at home with Elgin Federation or OFA. But go ahead.
So yeah, first off, I want to thank you guys for the invitation to this, and I appreciate you guys taking this correspondence very seriously. And I want to thank you, Jessica and Mr. Dutchek, right? So thank you for your work on this, and I was quite impressed when I saw this report. It's really well laid out. So thank you for that. There was a few points that I think Ed and Grant made about the straightaways being the problem, and I would echo those concerns, right? I know we ask for every rise and every hill, and it does seem onerous to say that, but the problem is, how do you put a price on a life? Like, I know 500 signs is going to be a significant cost. How do you put a price on a life? And I don't think, I think it's to Mr. Letham's point here. It's the people that don't know that are the problem in terms of road safety here, and how do we reach them? I think a lot of us understand how to operate and pass fire machinery when it's safe. We look for where they might be turning left or right into the field, right? So, and I don't know how we reach you. So I appreciate the effort that you're putting into that, right? You had talked in the report about having the truck approach sign and changing that to a tractor. I'd like to echo those thoughts there where I don't think it's the coming off the road issue. Like, if I'm in a tractor and I'm pulling out onto a road and I see a lot of traffic, I just leave the clutch in for a little while, right? Like, I'm not coming out, it's too busy, right? As a general rule, I don't think that's where the issue is. What I have seen and what I've experienced is when people are trying to pass unsafely. And I can use an example at the end of my road at Wilson Line at Putnam Road. My neighbor was spreading liquid manure. He had hired some tanks to come in, and there's valid reasons why you would use a larger tank. It's less trips and whatnot. And there was a motorist coming from the north and thought that they could pass the manure tank, before it tried to turn left. Ask me how that worked out. I picked up the tail light and I put it in the back of her car and I give her a hug and she was okay, but the car was less okay, right? So those are some of the issues. On another further just up the road again from my place, there's a bridge on Putnam Road just beside Crossley Hunter, and it's a little bit narrow. And if I were to tell you that I had a 15-foot packer on behind or a 15-foot planter on behind, you probably don't think that's an onerous size to be pulling down the road. Those of us in agriculture, you'd actually probably scoff at me for such a silly little piece of machinery that I would pull. But I digress. If that road, that bridge, when I approach that road, I have to time that. I have to decide whether that person down the road about a half mile is going to get there before I do, and whether I should slow down or whether that person should slow down. And you guess, and you can guess all you'd like, but you don't always get it right. And then the other part of that is, if you think you've got time to get through and you're pulled out, and then they decide they're coming anyway, well, I am going to slam the clutch and the brake on, and I'm going to roll over on the shoulder. But that isn't great for the person trying to follow me as well. Like, that's a dangerous approach too, right? So I think there's merit in the signs, and I appreciate the specialized locations for the signs, because I agree, I don't want sign pollution either. They don't work if you have too many, right? I thought that I had, and I think it was sign RB31 in this report that you had. It was the 2 cars don't pass. I don't know if that's a provincial jurisdiction sign or if we're allowed to invent our own sign, but would it be possible to make one of those cars a tractor and call that a no, don't pass farm machinery through here, right? Because that illustrates the issue that we're facing here. I'm going to cite Marianne Vandegable down coming out of Port Stanley. They've had that long sweeping hill coming up to their farm from the port. And she says, I'm out there all the time and people are passing. They can't see what's coming around me. They can't see around that corner. What a dangerous place to pass, right? So I would suggest that would be a spot too, right? In terms of the ability for the Federation to do a specialized approach in terms of where to put the signs, I don't think we have the resources or the knowledge. We're farmers. You guys manage the roads, and I would suggest that you're doing very well with it. I don't know that I can be specific as to what area would need a sign and what area wouldn't need a sign. I'm happy to work with you guys and appreciate the reaching out, but at this point, I think we just need to be safe, and maybe we'll work with the county to try to find those spots. We may need a pickup truck and a lunch one day to do it, but we need to take it seriously. And I don't think it's just farmers' lives that are at stake. It's the motorists that don't know the dangers on the road. And I think because we know what we know, we need to look out for those. I think that's all I could say.
Thanks, Greg. Mark, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We're going on about signs. That's fine. I kind of agree with Mr. Ketchabah. The bigger signs may help more. And I know in Malahide, we want the bigger signs for the Amish area. We put a little flashing light on them. So you'd have to look at it. Whether it's working on it, I don't know, but at least you're looking at it. Is that something we could do on a basis and just have it like seasonal, spring or fall? I don't know. We're going to throw it out there. You're talking about engaging with farmers and that. I think a short video of a big tractor going down the road might be better, because it's tough, and especially when you got mailboxes that stick up close. You got to keep looking behind you. Can I get over far enough? And if you do, so I would agree with that. Near the grain facilities, it probably wouldn't hurt to put a couple signs up like Hensel and going into Elmer on Imperial. I've got 2 grain trucks, and grain trucks don't accelerate like a sports car. And there's been so many close calls with idiots that have to pass you. It doesn't matter. They're going to pass you. It's really frustrating. People just don't get it. On my own road, I was coming from Springwater. I had my Versatile, which is like 16 feet wide with a big cultivator behind it. This little lady decides she's going to pass me. Well, guess what? Cell phone in one hand, a coffee in the other, she's steering with her knee. I goes, are you serious? Like, wow, you know how close you are to death. Like, I don't know how we educate. You can't educate that. It's just stupid, right? But yeah, that would be my suggestion. Maybe the bigger signs, like Ed says, with a flashing light to draw your attention, put them on seasonally or spring and fall. I'd support the idea of a video. That wouldn't be a big deal to make one, but something big enough that it shows you what it looks like from up there. Thank you.
Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Warden Jones. I would maybe draw some attention that actually Greg and I did make a video. Greg was driving his combine And I had the car behind and he was just commenting on, can you see us? So we could measure that he cannot see out of his mirrors the car behind after so many feet. That short little clip would be a great little video to put on there. So we could share that. The other thing I would be careful of when you look at the archival pictures, please don't put the children on there on the tractor without a buddy seat and a cab. Because we've been trying to send that message. So I would just be careful of those pictures.
It was great discussion. So Peter, where would you like us to point you? Which direction?
Mr. Chairman, it's going to be really helpful to me if we can establish some installation criteria where we'd like to see the signage. Is it on busier straightaway roadways? You had mentioned, Greg, a location. I know the hill you're talking about on Union Road, just south of the Sparta line. I'm unfamiliar with the farming family or the operations that goes on there, but I can absolutely appreciate if you're turning into that laneway, you're not seeing what's coming down the hill. It's input like that staff would need to make the best recommendations of where the signs are located. And what might be helpful if we establish some criteria. The road's got to have a certain number of vehicles per day. For example, and the reason I say that, otherwise I think we could quickly come to justifying one of these signs on every kilometer of every section of roadway. We don't want to get into an argument as you had mentioned, what's the value of a life, and try to equate that to signage. That argument doesn't become very fruitful with any road investment. You can say that about anything. Roads are inherently a dangerous place. And fortunately in Elgin County, we have relatively safe roads, safer than the provincial average and safer than our peers, I'd like to think. For instance, while the guide rail you mentioned on Putnam Road at Crossley Hunter is a challenge, some jurisdictions don't use guide rail. If you go to Oxford and Middlesex, and I would only hesitate to say that having hazards without protection pose a greater safety concern to vehicular traffic anyway. But I understand it creates an obstacle for farm equipment. So do mailboxes, which, Canada Post are going to tell you have to be so close to a road and so high. So there's a bit of a conflict of interest there. So in order for us to come back with a plan, we could design a general type of sign. If we were to install it seasonally, and we do this with deer warning signage. We have what we call our 10 hotspots in Elgin County, and that's based on collision history. And I know the deer don't read the signs. People tell me that all the time. But when we have our local municipal partners install the signs seasonally for us with an amber beacon, we hope at least it'll just spark a little attention to that driver to go, oh yeah, deer are out this time of year. And maybe that's the same messaging we want to get across here. In my opinion, it works with the deer signs because we've identified 10 of our most frequently collision sections of roadways for deer collisions. So it's justifiable. It's a smaller number. It's not everywhere where you're going to have sign pollution and you're going to, the messaging isn't going to resonate with you because it sells the same sign. So if we could identify in some fashion, and you know what, this could be a starting point. I've found success calling initiatives like this pilot projects because it doesn't bind us to continuing on this path, installing more and more signs. If a farming operation sees the sign, they may want to request it for fronting their property. And if we call it a pilot project and maybe start getting feedback from the community, I'm trying to think of how we measure it for its success. And without specific collision statistics, that's going to be very difficult. So that we're having a nice discussion. Everybody's, it's a big free discussion right now. Those are the type of comments that I'm hearing and looking to formulate an action plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking, Peter, maybe first stop would be to consult with the OPP where there have been some agricultural traffic incidents, would help identify those areas within the county that might need a little extra attention. I think it's a little onerous again to whatever direction the committee is going to recommend from a signage perspective, but to try to place a road safety smartness awareness campaign or whatever you want to call it at each gateway coming into the county. I don't know if you need that. But I think if you identify the hot spots and then go from there, we can build it out gradually over time as the need arise. But I know that there has been a fatality on Lake Shore. I suspect there have been accidents on 45, probably down to the west end. Richard, you're probably better qualified to announce that. You've announced 73 is a busy one for trying to run equipment. Highbury is impossible. So, the point is, we can kind of come up with some ideas of where, and I would think that most people would try to avoid the real heavy traveled areas, but sometimes there is an alternative.
Go ahead, Donna.
I was just going to add that certainly when we're harvesting or working the ground, that we wouldn't need it on our road because there isn't the traffic. But if we were to, when we go to the elevator, we try to take the back roads to get there. Once in a while, we have to take 74 Highway or Belmont Road. Horrible. We travel behind the equipment with a car with four-way flashing because people always try to pass. And there's dips and turns and there has been fatalities on that road. So I think perhaps some of the busier roads coming off of urban centers where more traffic that is not farming traffic, that maybe the signs could have more impact. I don't know.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, especially the one that you talked about, Banner Gables, top of the hill. That's coming out of Port Stanley. It's one of the exits out to the 401, especially on the weekends and when they're starting to harvest strawberries, whatever. And I could see it being a huge issue because people come out of. There's also the groups that have those racing time trials around, that do the loop coming out of Port Stanley back down Lake Line and their little high performance cars and motorcycles. And it seems like see who can get around there the fastest. And that is a huge concern. They come up that hill at about 120 and they don't know what's at the top of that hill. But yeah, the higher, like 80-kilometer roads, higher volume coming out of the Port Stanley or Belmont or wherever it is, probably is the best place to start. Greg, I think you had your finger up.
Yeah, and you guys are talking a lot about the traffic, and I think it's important, obviously, the higher volumes of traffic. In my experience, sometimes it's almost the lower volumes of traffic. When there's nobody on the road, you can run. And if somebody's coming down the road at 100 kilometers an hour and they see one tractor and a pair of cultivators ahead of you, that's no obstacle. And it's almost when there's less traffic. If there's a lot of traffic moving at 90 and everybody's going to stow up for it, it kind of congests it a bit. Like, obviously, they get angry about it as well. But I also would add that sometimes less volume almost adds to speed and almost adds to danger because there's only one threat and that would be it. But I did want to say I do like the temporary idea. I guess I never looked at those deer signs to notice how temporary they are. But if you put a temporary sign up and you take it down in a month or something like that, it could go to another location. And then because it's not mundane, you're not passing it every day, you don't forget about it. It goes up. And then I almost wonder if that would have the effect of showing us where to put those signs. Because if Marianne's got one on her hill and everybody's like, that's a great idea, I think I should put one over here by 73. That communication will come out innately if they're a temporary in nature sign and can be moved around. And I did want to echo Ed's point about the spring as well. Like, that's obviously a busy season as well. So but I do like the idea of having a flag raising ceremony because there's something for the media to report. And I think you actually have to have something for the media to report. So just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate all the information. It's very good information to me. I'm on these roads all the time, but to get these perspectives, it makes a lot of sense. However, we're talking about high-speed roads, and then we're talking about low-speed roads. We're talking about straightaways, and we're talking about curves. We're talking about signs getting popular and wanting them at other locations, and it's going to be municipal staff that's going to have to move them all around the place. This leads me to maybe, here's something else for the committee to entertain in part of this discussion is we are in the midst right now of installing brand new gateway signs across the county. So all the county roads that enter into Elgin County, you'll see a new sign installed there within the next month or so. There'll be an opportunity if, council supports maybe a tab underneath that sign. Something resonated with me that Jessica said, slowing down is part of the charm, right? Maybe there's a slogan or something that we incorporate a slow moving vehicle, tab. We used to have, before the, 911 was popular, all Elgin County signs said a 911 community. Do you remember that, Donna? So we've removed that because I think everybody knows, I hope knows that we're a 911 community now. But there may be an opportunity for us to address a broader messaging. I know we're not going to target specific areas, but I'm concerned now that we're not going to be the solution to everybody's problem if we start putting them at certain locations on county roads.
Sorry, your solution, Peter, is put them at the gateways? And the tagline again was,
Through you, Mr. Chair. One of the options was slow down, we're growing, or there was slow down as part of the charm.
I like slow down as part of the charm. Can you bookend it with slow moving vehicle signs on both ends of it? And for your flag, for flag raising day, do you want just a great big flag with a slow moving vehicle sign on it?
Sure.
It would be like Mars attached.
Like, Mark, you had your finger up.
Yeah, thank you. Got a lot of good suggestions today. I'm gonna throw some of it back to the EFA. Is there any program where you can promote better rear lighting? There's those 5-foot light bars. That's gonna get your attention, because let's say farmers are cheap. They're gonna put these little $10 lights on that usually die. They don't know what they're doing. They have no proper signals. A lot of farmers don't have good slow moving vehicle signs. They're just junk. And could you promote rear view cameras? I'm gonna invest in a couple because it's impossible to see. When you come out of Belmont with a load of fertilizer behind you, it's impossible to see behind you. The mirrors aren't good enough. And throw some of the onus back on the farmers too, just not have the farmers wanting everything else. Is that possible? Thank you.
Yep, yeah, thanks, Richard and Mike. Say hello to Minister Flack.
I just wanted to add as well, when we're talking about partners, what comes to mind is the insurance companies, and maybe the mutual insurance companies would be having some statistics of where accidents occur. And perhaps they've got some funding, and Federation could look for some funding, and we can come up with something to supplement.
I guess the only other thought I had, and I know this is probably through OFA where they have small commercials on the local TV stations. Is that still a thing? Do they still promote that, especially in harvest or planting seasons? I haven't seen one in a while, but I could be just missing them.
I think the old phase messaging is generally an internet-based communication now, be it through their Facebook page or other social media channels. I don't know. I guess I'm showing you, I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. And if I did, I wouldn't watch the commercials. I can skip that part. To your question, Mark, I think that's a great idea. Oxford County has had a slow-moving vehicle sign. The Oxford County Federation of Agriculture has provided that. And at the farm show this year, I believe it was Middlesex that I think was giving away some of those flashing lights as well, right? So it all comes down to funding, right? And I know the Federation, we are trying to maintain a black budget this year. It is a challenge, of course, but it is a great idea to suggest, and I'll take that back to the Federation.
Actually, I did like Mark's idea about the cameras. I know we have one on our travel trailer and just a little plug-in monitor. It sticks on the window of the cab and magnetic attachment at the back. And it's amazing how well they work. Yeah, they are cheap. They're coming down price all the time. Hey, Peter, do you have enough to work with, you and Jessica, to at least start a thought process and maybe we come back in a couple months or whatever?
So, Mr. Chair, is the direction for us to come back with a suggested tagline to have a gateway signage and I'd show you a design of what that sign should look like?
Yep. And possibly even another sign for problematic areas, some sort that I think, the one with the car and the truck, or car and the tractor that Mark suggested possibly, or, turning with the tractor on it. I don't know.
How do you envision maybe those getting decided and deployed? Is the thought that maybe the landowner knows that this is available for them to request on a temporary basis with a flashing beacon at their location? Or I see this quickly evolving to either many requests or permanent sign placement. You can say, look, it was effective. Back to the save a life argument, right? It's been effective. Well, why can't it remain? And hey, my neighbor's got that. We farm as well. Can we have one? I'm concerned of setting a precedent, a slippery slope there of these signs. Just a comment.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for more procedural clarification, I just wanted to make sure I have a resolution, a draft resolution, but I wanted to clarify that first part that Peter was just talking to. Are we talking about approving a direction for staff to work with the EFA and the OPP to develop a criteria for installing these custom roadway signs, and that staff identify locations based on this criteria and bring that back to this committee for consideration? Or are we talking about requesting signs? I just want to make sure that when we do the resolution and that we're all on the same page about what we're voting on, because this recommendation will go to council for ultimate council approval. So I just want to make sure that we know what we're recommending to council, and then of course, subsequently what will be brought back to this committee. And then of course, there is a section about developing the communications campaign with input from the Elgin OPP and the EFA to remind drivers to share the roadways with agricultural equipment and to broadcast the messaging on municipal websites, social media, and social media during the planting and harvesting seasons. And to that I added, and that suggested tagline and signage design be brought back to the committee for consideration. So I wanted first clarification about, are we directing staff to work with the EFA and OPP to develop a criteria for these locations, and then based on that criteria, recommending locations to the committee? Or is it something else? I just wanted to be clear.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a suggestion, by installing a tab at our new gateway signs with a tab with a slogan that's approved by this committee and council is an actionable item that we can actually implement this year. This discussion, I think, has sparked all of our interest. Maybe some other communities have figured out some other ways of identifying critical areas, with farm equipment. And maybe we can have, discussion with your peers around the EFA, maybe with the OPP as well, and we can further the discussion at a future meeting as to site-specific signage. Not dropping that topic, but if we could focus on implementing signage at the gateways, at least we're having actionable item for 2025, and we're moving forward with something to support the community.
Yeah, it's a good start, and keep pushing the marker ahead as long as we can justify the costing of it, obviously, and the workload that go into it. But I think it's a great start if everybody's agreeable.
Just so I understand, then the result, the resolution today would be to prepare gateway signs, and we didn't include anything about cooperating with EFA or OPP to make a criteria for your signs. Is that the resolution is just for the gateway signs and not for? Yeah, the no passing signs then. The no passing signs. It's for when you figure both directions.
These charges outside. What? That's agreeable. Couple line and they cross. And they still have church.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, the pavement markings, pavement markings are simply a warning. And yeah, if you cause an issue, if you cause a collision because you passed in those areas, you are likely opening up yourself up to a dangerous driving or a careless driving charge because you passed where you obviously didn't have the room to do so. But to simply pass in one of those locations is not a ticketable offense under the Highway Traffic Act. While I have the mic, I would like to ask Greg, I know this letter went to Middlesex County too. I'd be interested in understanding what initiatives or meetings or anything action that undertook with Middlesex County.
Sorry, I can't speak to Middlesex County's approach on that. It was suggested that we collaborate, obviously, with as many people as we can to enhance both farmer and road safety, right? So that's why we approached Middlesex as well. And there's been suggestion around our board to maybe partner with the Grain Farmers of Ontario or something like that, right? So I think we just want to open the discussion as wide as we can to make sure that all the areas are as safe as possible. So that was the reasoning behind the Middlesex. No, but you know what would be, from a federation perspective, could be really useful. We have a policy advisory committee through the OFA, and we just had one I think it was about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we had a PAC meeting. I think there'll be another one in August, and I think I could bring this as a county commodity concern, and perhaps other counties do have a solution to your point about that. And hopefully I could report back something there. But I would like to stress that I'd hate to give up on the no passing signs. I just want to, I want to make sure that that's not off the table in the future, so.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
The resolution, it doesn't state anything about input from EFA, OFA?
So the original resolution did, but I want to clarify. So now are we settling on directing staff to provide the committee with proposed designs and taglines for agricultural road safety tabs to be installed in Elgin County's gateway signage, and that staff develop a communications campaigns with input from the Elgin OPP and EFA to remind drivers to share roadways with agricultural equipment and to broadcast the messaging on municipal websites and social media during the planting and harvesting seasons annually. Is that where we're at, or we're not there? Okay. No, that's just a recommendation. Like, I'm just trying to pull it together into something. So if that's not what the committee wants, please tell me and I will craft something new.
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I had an admission from the president of the federation who he didn't have any idea where to place these signs. Correct. Okay, now in terms of design of the sign, I have no problem working with you on that. Is that fair? So is there going to be a further question in there about continuing to work with the OPP and or the EFA and designing something for the interior of the county rather than just gateway signs, like a proposal? Or is that something we just leave to staff?
I don't have an issue with that, at least starting the process. Obviously, Peter's going to come back with costs, and that's going to be the biggest contributing factor to how county council decides is the cost. Because that's ultimately will be the deciding factor is how much budget Peter has for this year or next year and how to allocate that budget. So, Peter, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so cost is always a consideration. To me personally, when we look at road signs, we look at warrant criteria. Almost any sign that you see on the roadway has some objective criteria on why it's there, right from the size of the sign to its location to its spacing. Without that objective approach, it's difficult for me to recommend just placement of a sign. This happens often this time of year when children are playing outside. I get a number of calls from adjacent landowners say, I want children playing sign. And my kids are always in the front yard. People are idiots on the roadway. And you can appreciate that, but just because you run a daycare and you have a half a dozen children in your front yard, our manuals are pretty clear. It has to be a community center or a park designated by the municipality. So again, it's easy for us to keep signing consistency. And what that does, in my opinion, is provide clear and concise messaging to people. I pride myself, we have 10,000 signs on our roadway. 700 kilometers of roadway, we have 10,000 road signs, and each one has a specific purpose, and we try to follow the guidelines of the OTM. I'm not opposed to developing signage criteria. Again, it sort of goes back to what we talked about before. But when I hear that they're purposeful at a number of different locations, then the signage lends itself to more of a gateway sort of entrance feature sign to say, our community is agriculture. Please be prepared to slow down and respect behaviors of, hardworking farmers trying to feed cities. Maybe there's an opportunity to provide different slogans at each one of our gateway signs. I think we have about 20 county roads that enter into our region. We do have an existing capital budget that should be sufficient enough to install a tab underneath all these new locations. So it won't be a project hit this year. Obviously, county council is going to have to approve the signage because it's going to be reflective upon County of Elgin. And I'm sure they would support it, especially if it came from, the EFA and this committee. But I'm hesitant without some clear objective criteria of when a sign gets triggered. Now, we do receive OPP collision data. Sometimes you're able to search, like if I looked for either a tractor wording that the officer may put in the report or something, maybe we could find collision prone areas. And then you get the reverse argument. Oh, someone's got to get hurt before you put up a sign. Well, unfortunately, things could happen at any location and you don't sign for those inevitabilities. So unfortunately, you have to have a negative experience to start telling the people, the drivers of, there's been a history of something here, please be careful. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to review collision reports and see if we can identify these areas. But quite honestly, the best is the anecdotal experience I hear from you or your grandfather. Where was that, right? And then again, it's tough because then when I get a request for the sign, if I don't have the objectable criteria to say, oh, it doesn't qualify for a sign, unfortunately, because it has to meet these metrics, then it puts staff in an awkward position. And then you'll just see a ton of these signs and they'll lose their effectiveness.
Here's a thought. Maybe it's a matter of the county partnering with the lower tier municipalities to add them to Bengal shed and gateway signs instead. That spreads it across the county a whole lot easier. And if you get participation from the LMPs, then maybe it makes it more affordable and more manageable to do. And based on placement of our small communities, you can pick out the best spots to put it. Just thought.
Warden Jones, did I understand that we still had budget under the RIPA committee? That there's funding? Oh, okay. So, but it is something maybe we could think of next year.
It is.
for some of the signage. I like the idea of partnering with the lower tiers and being able to do that. And if we do those those triangle signs, if they're reflective, they're going to get the lights, and we don't have to have the triggering of them, but they would really look like our signs.
Mark, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Duchek, but I think it's illegal to put a slow-moving sign on any kind of signpost or any mailbox or anything like that. Or that's illegal, so we can't even put them on the gateways.
Yeah,
The OPP information, I bet 99.9% of people never call the OPP when they have a close call, because what are you gonna do? Just a thought, but there's a lot of close calls out there every time, but nobody's gonna call the police unless there's an accident.
Mr. Chair, yes, unfortunately, we can't sign for close calls, or I'm sure every road has its own story. As far as the slow-moving vehicle signs, I don't see full-size signs. I see a replication of a smaller version of that sign. Bookmarking, I think someone said that before, whatever tagline and slogan that we put underneath our gateway sign, just so they recognize that that little triangle does tie into this. So we'll provide some design details at our next meeting, whenever that is, what that tab may look like. And then once this committee approves that, then we can take it for council for their final blessing.
Okay. Everybody happy? It's a great first start anyway. A lot of things to think about. There's nothing else. Greg, go ahead.
Just a thought, yeah. Would it be possible to have you come out, Mr. Duchek, to perhaps a federation meeting, and we can actually, with our board, discuss your possible criteria on the no passing signs? Our letter indicated we want a no passing sign, and I want to be able to come back to say that there's a possibility of that. I don't want to rule that out completely. And if the obstacle is criteria, let's see if we can overcome that.
Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate if there was some feedback on what that criteria look like. The staff report is staff wouldn't support the blanket no passing signs. And so I can relay that message to the EFA, but that's staff's position, unless council tells me something else and to work with you to install them. Right now, staff wouldn't support the blanket installation of those. If the EFA has from another jurisdiction some criteria that you could share or best practices, absolutely, that's information that we would use and then report back to this committee to have further discussion. I think this is the appropriate forum to have this discussion here. But if you have anything, please send it our way.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my suggestion would be, if it is the committee's will, to provide direction today for staff to go back and work on proposed taglines and designs for the gateway signage to come back to this committee for consideration, and also that they approve the development of the communications campaign, and that a future meeting, and so those resolutions will then go on the next county council agenda for council to give that their blessing. And then after that, my suggestion would be that there be another meeting of this committee here where staff bring back those designs, the taglines, and what the signs might look like for this committee to consider. And then that might also be an opportunity to have a discussion at this committee about possible criteria. And then at that point, anything that comes out of that meeting as a recommendation would then go forward to council for their final consideration. I do think the idea of the LMPs is good, but until we have a signage design, it might be, and I imagine that it wouldn't be this committee asking the LMPs to install, it would be county council. So until we have a design that this committee likes and is proposing to council, I think at that time, if the committee wishes, the recommendation would be that council would send correspondence to the local municipalities, asking them to support this initiative and providing the design at that time. Just so for today, my suggestion would be to direct staff to come back to the committee with the proposed designs and taglines, and also to approve the communications plan. And then that another meeting be scheduled in the near future to discuss those designs and have a criteria discussion.
I assume that's the resolution in a nutshell. Need a mover and a seconder. Mark, who wants to second? Donna? Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. And going down the list, go ahead. What's that? I don't, is there any other business? Other than that, I attended the Agscape last week, that Elgin Federation hosted, and that was a great event, Greg. I was quite impressed. It's well, obviously well attended. There's a lot of kids running around there. Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, Mayor Jones, Warren Jones, my apologies. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, what we did, the Elgin Federation last week partnered with Agscape. If anybody heard of Agscape, it's a teacher ambassador program, and we were able to bring a total of just short of 800 kids through across 2 days. We had the Joe Thornton Arena. The ice was out after the home show, and we were able to educate students from across the county on education or agriculture. And we were able we targeted the grade 7, 8, and 9 area because they choose high school short courses at that time and develop career pathways. And we felt that was important to fill the pipeline with future leaders for agriculture in the future. So that was last week. It was possible in large part due to county support and furthermore the Green Lane Trust and several sponsors. So I want to thank everybody for that. And I do have a small thank you gift, but it's not prepared yet. It's shipping today. So I will get that back to you guys.
We don't need gifts, but I think I was impressed with the trailer, the technology in that trailer. First time I've done virtual MIG welding. Didn't think that was even possible, but apparently it is. Okay, there's nothing else. Motion to go close. Oh, no, close. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think we should schedule our next meeting soon, but at this point, I think it would be better if staff took this way and discussed how long it might take to get some of those designs for the taglines and when it might be appropriate for the next meeting. So after we have that discussion, I will have a discussion with the chair about when our next meeting will be. And we will, of course, include you, Greg, on that email as well.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Resolved that we do now adjourn at 2:10 PM to meet again at the call of the chair.
Mover and seconder, please. Ketchba and Widner. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you all.